As we pause today to give thanks for the many freedoms that the citizens of America have as a result of the resolve and the sacrifice that so many have made over the history of this country, we are still aware that we live in a world where threats to that freedom are increasing, not decreasing. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, spoke at West Point at the Military Academy graduation this month, and his speech brought into sharp focus what West Point's graduates will face in the coming years of their service, namely potential direct conflict with the other two superpowers on the world stage, Russia and China, both run by regimes antithetical to freedom. Well, joining me now to talk about this and more is FRC's Executive Vice President, a founding member of the Army's elite Delta Force, Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin. General, welcome back to the program. Always great to have you on.
Tony, I'm really glad to be with you, especially for the celebration of Memorial Day.
General, you and I have spent a lot of time talking over the years, and I know that this is a day of quite a significant day for you because of the men that you've served with who have given that full devotion, that final, they've paid the full price with their lives for freedom. I want to get your reflections on this Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tony, I think America, as a general thing, sees this as the beginning of summer. And we see Americans all over the country grilling and skiing and doing all of those things. And that's good. It's good that Americans are free to do those things, but we should not lose sight of the fact that this is about remembering those who gave the last full measure, those who died in combat, those who did not make it home, or they came home sadly in a body bag. So this is a day of reflection, and it's a day to be proud to be an American, because these men and women who we honor on this special day are never to be forgotten, and they should give us the right to be proud because of their sacrifices.
Well, I know you speak at a lot of Memorial Day services. I spoke at one that was actually held last week, and you cannot escape America's production of men and women that are willing to lay down their life for others. You can't separate that from our Christian foundation. I mean, Jesus said, "Greater love hath no one than to lay down his life for his friends." And I think that's what has, it's a part of our DNA as a nation that we have, produced generation after generation of those that, it's certainly not for a lot of pay, but they've been willing to go into harm's way for the benefit of the freedom of others. Can we continue that as a nation as we move further and further away from that foundation of faith?
Yeah. If you look at the polls, we have a declining base of young people who are proud to be Americans. Now, when you come in the military, everyone takes an oath to the Constitution of the United States. And if you're not proud to be an American, if serving your country does not really appeal to you or give you a sense of patriotism, then it is unlikely that you're going to come in the military. And furthermore, it is unlikely that you're going to do much of anything that represents a pride in being an American. So what we need to understand is that the ultra left in this country, and you can read that as the Marxist movement, has removed from our classrooms things like American history. But what they've replaced it with has been a very liberal agenda, which includes socialism and Marxism and critical race theory, et cetera. And I'm afraid that we have a declining base of young people who are proud to be Americans and who are willing to come into the military and serve our country. And I know that's the case because I talk to moms and dads all over the country. And if we don't have that base of young, proud Americans that want to serve, then America's in very deep trouble. And I see us, we're almost there, Tony.
You know, that's an extremely good point. I mean, if you have our education system teaching people to hate a country or to despise what it stands for, why would people then sacrifice to protect it? I mean, our education system is working against our own freedom.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the sad thing about it is we, my generation, your generation, we have watched this happen and did not stop it. And now what we've done, we as men, what we've done is we've left it up to the mothers in this country to stand up at the school boards and say, this is not going to be the program for my children. I'm not going to stand for you teaching this to my children. And I'm telling you, we've got the mothers riled up now, and you saw it beginning over in Loudoun County, Virginia. But you're seeing that all over the country now, and it's going to make a difference. It is going to change things, and it is going to be a step towards restoring pride and being an American.
And that is essential to our future freedom and our stability on the world stage. So this is not you might think parents, moms and dads standing up in the kindergarten classroom is not a significant thing. It's kind of that butterfly effect. There's one little step that we take could have a huge global significance because we return to an understanding of who we are as a nation and what we stand for. And I want to go back, General Boykin, to something you said a moment ago about talking to moms and dads. And you know that there are young people that are choosing not to go into the military because anecdotally you've spoken to their parents, you've spoken to those kids. But it's actually being shown in the statistics. Because our nation's military, when you look at the recruiting numbers and retention numbers, they're facing some real challenges right now, are they not?
They are indeed, and none of the services are actually meeting their recruiting goals. And in fact, it's so bad that the Army has announced that it's going to eliminate 12,000 slots from the military, from the Army. Specifically from the Army. And that is a result of not being able to recruit enough people to fill the ranks. And why is that? It is very largely because of the same thing that we just talked about in the education systems. These young men and women that come in the military to serve their country, and quite frankly, they want to be warriors for their country. What they're getting fed is a steady diet of critical race theory and tolerance and inclusion, and all of the leftist agendas issues are being forced on them, and it has nothing to do with being ready to win the nation's wars. And when we waste their time with all of this nonsense that has no impact on readiness, no positive impact on readiness, they are getting discouraged, and they're hearing from their peers that have gone into the military, and they're hearing from others that have left the military because they refused to take a vaccination. And it is building a constituency that is really not willing to serve, and it's reflected in the lack of being able to meet their recruiting goals now.
What you have just laid out there, General, is to me, sounds like a recipe for disaster, because what you have here is, you said, we have our schools that for the last couple of decades, if not longer, but intently in the last couple of decades, the CRT framework that is teaching children to basically distrust, dislike, even hate this country. So they're not going to be motivated to protect the country. But those who escape that indoctrination, maybe private school, homeschool, or even children who grow up in homes that are very patriotic, that survive that indoctrination and go on to the military. If they get to the military, now we have a military that's teaching the same thing that the schools were teaching the very ones who are to protect the country. They're teaching them an ideology that would cause them to hate the country. I mean, this sounds like a recipe for disaster in terms of national security.
Well, I think it is, Tony. And you stop and think about, and you and I know this because we have served, but the equalizer on the battlefield is two things. And one is a sense of purpose. Well, you know what you're fighting for. You know why you're fighting. And you see that in the Ukrainians right now. And then the other one is unit cohesion. Unit cohesion, you're working together. You will do whatever you have to do to protect your brother, your buddy on the right and left. And what we're doing with critical race theory is we're sitting these young men and women down in a classroom and we're dividing them up. We're dividing them. That's not unity. We're dividing them automatically. Right. And we're saying to them, you on this side are the oppressors and you on the other side have been oppressed by these people. And that does not build unit cohesion. You cannot expect to win if we don't have that cohesion. They've got to be willing to fight for each other as well as for the Constitution.
Right. And I know you were about 10 years ahead of me going into the military, but I know in the Marine Corps, we only had one color. It was green. Yeah. We had different shades of green, but we were all green. And we didn't have that separation. It was that unity that came because you all had a common purpose. We all had a common purpose and a common mission. So General, based upon your experience, 36 and a half years in the United States military, now for the last 15 years, you've been monitoring this. You continue to stay involved in speaking into this and the previous administration, giving advice to them. How do we get back to where we need to be?
Yeah, we need to, first of all, and everybody needs to understand what I'm saying. First of all, you need to go to the polls. And you need to be very conscious of the fact that the way you vote impacts on our military. Because what we need is we need, first of all, a commander-in-chief that respects our military and wants the very best for them and wants to ensure they're ready to meet the challenges of the future. And then secondly, we need members of Congress who might be on the Armed Services Committee, but certainly will vote the right way when it comes time to support our military with funding and other policies that impact on the men and women that serve in that military. That's the first thing. The second thing is you need to go out of your way to thank those people who are in the military and serving, to encourage them, because right now they're pretty discouraged.
Well, in general, I'd probably leapfrog ahead of those two in one that I know you're passionate about because you helped produce it, and that is to challenge dads, challenge moms, parents, to teach their children about this country and the significant markers of this country, those milestones, and its integration with our faith as Christians. Yeah,
and we need to know who those founding fathers are, and what we have been, what our young people, our youth today have been told is that they were just a bunch of white slave owners, and that misses the real history of our founding fathers. They were not perfect men, and they did not give us a perfect country, and we have not been a perfect country. But it's very important to understand who these men were and what motivated them, and to understand the biblical foundations of the values that were inculcated into our judicial system, for example, but also just in our government as a whole. And it is very important, though, and this is why Memorial Day is so key to us knowing who we are. It is very important to know about the sacrifices that have been made. If moms and dads are not aware of American history themselves, then they ought to make a habit of trying to find the appropriate literature that will help them to be able to explain to their children why America has been so important to the whole world and why we are still a great nation, because the sacrifices that have been made. And we have a generation right now that's not aware of those sacrifices. And all you have to do is take them through Arlington Cemetery or take them to some veteran cemetery in a local community and explain to them that some of these people here gave everything they had for something they believed in. And what they believed in was America. And we have been given the right to be proud to be Americans.
And we all have an obligation, as Abraham Lincoln said at the dedication of the Gettysburg Cemetery, that we have an obligation to pick up where they left off, where they gave that last full measure. and we've got to make sure that they did not die in vain. And that means each and every one of us, whether we serve in uniform or not, that we uphold the principles of this country, and we fight for those. And maybe that's fighting through legislation, maybe that's fighting in social media, to use that term. But we need to stand up for what we believe in and not shrink back out of fear of those on the left who want to marginalize and silence those who love this country.
Absolutely.
So, General, I want to thank you for joining us. Always great to talk with you. And once again, thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you, Tony. And just keep in mind what Memorial Day is all about, folks.
Right.